Rob, according to our records, Battlefield Earth hasn't been rented since 2005.
Oh, yeah, that's painted in.
Painted in. Okay, what does that mean?
Last time we painted the store, 2010 or so, that box just got painted into the shelf.
Okay, have any customers asked about that?
I don't think so.
I say we let it ride. Welcome to Rewind Video. I'm Bob.
I'm Rob.
And we love movies. Good ones, bad ones, old ones, new ones, big movies, small movies. Rob, there was a customer who was in the store last week and he asked to use the bathroom. Now, we don't have public restrooms here.
No.
Yeah, so...
Private restrooms.
Private restrooms. Now, it was clear that this guy was having an emergency, so I gave him the key and in he went. About 15 minutes later, this man emerges, and before he walks away, he says 4 fateful words. Don't go in there.
Ouch.
Yeah.
Never give away the key to the executive bathroom.
I know. Mistakes were made. But how bad could it be? I'm thinking to myself. And sure enough, curiosity gets the best of me. I poke my head in to make sure there isn't a disaster to clean up. And let's just say I should have heeded this man's advice.
Ouch.
So there's a reason I'm telling this story. You and I are charged with keeping the staff recommendation shelf at our fine video store stocked with movies that deserve our customers' attention. Each time we rotate in new movies, we adhere to a theme, and this week's theme is so bad, it's bad. Tonight, we've plucked 6 movies that represent a bathroom you should not go into.
Not bad as in good. Bad as in bad.
Yes. These are horrible, wretched, awful films that we advise you to avoid at all costs. So take our word for it. Do not rent them. And over the next hour, we'll explain why.
Doing something a little bit different this week.
Yeah. I mean, there are thousands of movies in our store. Not all of them are good.
Yeah. I think I can speak for myself, hopefully for you, but I got tired of recommending movies.
And we're still recommending movies, but just in a different way.
Yeah, we're recommending to never watch these movies.
Never. And, to be clear, you hinted at it, but these movies are bad. This is not a situation where, we're saying they're bad, but under the right circumstances, a couple beers, group of friends, 2 a.m. viewing party, you might find them to actually be great.
Yeah.
This is truly a case of put this down, walk away, find something else.
There is one of mine that maybe you could have some fun with, I think, but it gets pretty tiresome pretty quick.
There might be one in my selection that people could feel that way about too.
I might agree with you about that, but we try to be open-minded here at the store, and we try to be, we try to have a wide variety of things that we like, and I hate to really be negative about things.
Yes.
And I try to understand why someone else would like something. I put myself in their shoes. But for some movies just make that impossible.
Well, yeah, you make a good point. We live in a world where books are being banned in schools and censorship abounds, and we at Rewind Video would never deny people the opportunity to rent something. But in the case of this staff recommendation shelf, we advise, if not implore, our customers to spend their time in front of the TV in a different way.
I guess, definitely stay away from these. Some people love some of the movies that we've chosen tonight.
Yeah. So
people are going to disagree, and I generally cannot fathom how some people enjoy these movies.
I feel the same way. We would characterize these as 1-star movies.
Absolutely.
And I know that you have a star system that I admire when it comes to rating things. Do you want to talk a little bit about kind of how you approach the rating system?
Well, I'm glad you admire it.
I do.
It's a 5-star system, and you use the same system. No halvesies, just 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. But I generally start everything at a 3. Every movie is a 3-star movie. I give it a pretty wide berth. I always round towards the middle. I kind of view the star ratings as thresholds. And so if a movie is, in my estimation, a 3.9, then it's a 3-star movie. If it's a 2.1, it's a 3-star movie. And so it has to be pretty disappointing to be a 2-star movie and pretty good to be a 4-star movie. And then 5 stars, my all-time favorite movie or movies. And 1 star is like so bad that I need to talk about it.
Okay.
You know, and that's why I brought 3 of them to the table tonight, because like it's like remarkably bad. I have to talk to somebody about it and figure out how somebody thought this was a watchable film.
I can't disagree with that characterization of 1-star movies. I would say that for me, these are movies that I never want to watch again, and I want that time back, but I would love to explain to people why.
Well, one of these movies I told myself I would never watch again, and sure enough, for this fucking podcast, I did.
Yes, I felt the same way about all of my movies.
Yeah. Good Lord.
Yes. So without further ado, why don't we dive right the fuck into this nightmare selection of films and talk about some stuff that people shouldn't watch?
Well, all of the movies I chose tonight were financially successful. And I'm actually going to go in order of more and more successful. But this one was surprisingly a hit. Came out in 1980. It is a beloved film by some people.
Right.
It is Popeye, directed by Robert Altman. This is filed under speech impediments.
That's fair.
Here's the back of the box. Popeye is a super strong, spinach-scarfing sailor man who's searching for his father. During a storm that wrecks his ship, Popeye washes ashore and winds up rooming at the oil household, where he meets Olive. Before he can win her heart, he must first contend with Olive's fiancé, Bluto. I would not have guessed that was the plot of this movie, but I guess if you're like thinking back to it, I guess that's what it was about.
Sure.
Also, this is about Popeye searching for his father. I noticed a theme tonight. All of my movies involve someone searching for their father, essentially, or maybe a grandfather.
Ooh. Yes.
The only theme I could piece together for yours is nudity. But let's move on. Let's move on to the tagline here. Tagline: the sailor man with the spinach can. Ugh.
I mean, certainly not the worst part of this movie.
Certainly not the worst part. But first of all, spinach in a can is gross.
Right.
So even mentioning it is disgusting.
Yes.
But also, it's not like Popeye walks around eating spinach this whole movie. He doesn't. There's like one shot of a spinach can. I think his dad is eating it.
Yeah. It relies on your understanding of the character for that tagline to make sense. But yeah.
So yeah, this is Robert Altman's adaptation of the comic strip from the 1930s.
Very top of mind for people.
Yeah, exactly. Robin Williams plays the titular Popeye. This is his first movie role. Poor guy. Shelley Duvall plays Olive Oyl, and she was like a mainstay of Altman's films in the 70s. This is her 6th Altman movie.
Wow.
She's kind of the only sign of a pulse in this whole movie, if you ask me.
I don't disagree.
She understands she's in a comic strip. She actually tries to like emote a little bit and like make some sort of an effort to come across or come through the screen. Not that she's great, but like compared to everyone else, this is also a musical, which is disappointing when you find out. Yes. All the songs are written by Harry Nilsson, and he was kind of a prolific singer-songwriter in the 60s and 70s, but his discography abruptly ends after this movie, even though he lived for another 25, 30 years. So I'm not sure what happened there. Maybe because every song in this movie is just fucking terrible. Like really, really bad. I want to get to a couple of them in a minute. Okay. I think this is kind of a hangout movie.
Oh, but that's a bad hangout.
Well, except it's about miserable characters in a depressing place singing terrible songs. Right. All the characters are obnoxious.
If nothing else, it makes whatever's going on in your life feel better.
Oh, yeah. Nobody in this movie is likable, worth rooting for. It seems everybody is like ripping each other off as a profession.
Nobody's understandable.
Even the hamburgers are disgusting looking.
Yes.
But yeah, everybody's unintelligible. But I can't understand a single word that Popeye says.
Incomprehensible. And that's not an exaggeration.
Yeah. I sat close to the TV, turned the volume way up, and I got a little bit of it. A little bit.
Yeah.
How did anybody in the world think that Popeye in this form was going to be a usable character in a movie?
I don't know.
A main character.
So it's interesting you bring this up because I feel like in the same way that the studio was like, well, we have a comic book property that we can adapt to a film. Mm-hmm. I'm worried that we are on this trajectory once again with the success of Barbie and Mattel's excitement over the fact that this toy movie turned into a massive success. They've already optioned 143 of their properties for films.
Yeah.
And I'm sure some of those are going to be a Popeye.
Somebody still owns Popeye. Paramount probably still owns Popeye. Somebody might kick out a Popeye movie.
That might happen again.
Just because. But I mean, if you make it good, though, it's fine. But this is just a complete misfire in every level. Like, how did Robin Williams deal with making that fucking face the whole time?
Oh my
he made the face the whole time with the pipe in his mouth. Like that's ridiculous. They were like, we'll just have him give dialogue like this.
Might explain why he's so unintelligible.
Yeah. Definitely partially explains it, but also, like, I think Altman just didn't put microphones out. Like, I'm not exactly sure. Like, he makes his movies like this.
Yeah.
But every scene is completely lifeless. Every song sucks more and more energy out of the audience, out of the movie. I mean, the movie starts with Popeye showing up to this village on the sea, and there's a song to introduce him, and it introduces the village itself to the audience. And it's just a sad-ass song. It's like a slow banjo strumming along as Popeye mumbles to himself. I mean, you can't hear what anybody's saying. It seems like everybody wants to, like, harm themselves.
Rob, I watched this movie last night, and I can't remember
ever being so sad.
Usually with a musical, one of those songs gets stuck in your head. All of these are gone. And I'm glad for that. But nothing is memorable.
The one song, Everything is Food, but they're just like, what are they even talking about?
Right.
And and they're not songs. They're just kind of like drones that go on and on. And then there's the He's Large song, which is about Bluto's dick. And like, why? Why is there a song about his dick in this movie?
That's a great question.
And they pretend like it's not about his dick, but it's about his dick.
Yeah.
And it's barely a song. It's just a refrain over and over again that has no life to it whatsoever. And so this movie, helped very much by the music, just relentlessly beats you down and sucks the life out of you.
I couldn't agree more.
And Robert Altman is the last guy that should have been directing this movie.
Oh, that's 100% true.
Yeah.
At this time, you could have chosen literally anybody else.
But his style is completely unsuited to this.
Yeah.
It's like this lackadaisical style, which is very hit and miss anyway. That can work in certain situations. But when you have like a Popeye story to tell, and you're just like, yeah, we'll just like, I don't know, just like have people like hang out and mumble to each other for 2 hours. It's like, no, that's not how this is supposed to work. But again, I guess they didn't, they figured it out.
They got to the end.
Yeah. It's just a combination of all of these wrong elements that they mixed together, and they got something just truly atrocious.
Boy, it feels like you're describing some of my movies tonight, but you're absolutely describing Popeye. I had the experience today of renting a movie to a customer, and I was bemoaning the fact that I had to watch Popeye last night, and he said to me, "Oh, I like that movie."
Yeah.
And I said, "You have to explain to me why." And his response was, first, can you imagine anyone better than Shelley Duvall in the role of Olive Oyl? And to that, I'll say, sure. Yeah,
I completely agree with that.
Yeah, she is great. He also said the practical effects and the set design he found appealing. Practical effects maybe, but set design I can't agree with.
They're both terrible.
But he did say, he was like, now I remember going to this movie when I was a kid, and everybody hated it. The kids hated it. The parents hated it. And the fact that it was marketed to children is mind-boggling. This is not a movie that any child would enjoy.
No, I remember watching it as a kid. I remember like going back to it as an adult and having all of these, I don't know, like strange and like gross feelings returning. Like it was a movie I knew at the time as a kid that I shouldn't have been watching. Mm-hmm. I don't know if it's just because there's a song about some dude's dick in it, but like, but it's also like, it's just like, it's just fucking depressing. It's a depressing piece of shit. So
Yes.
It might be the movie that I hate more than any other movie in the world.
Oh, wow.
It's truly a bad cocaine hangover come to life. So I'm putting it on the shelf this week for the topic of so bad it's bad.
Well, fine pick. And by fine, I mean awful. But
Terrible.
But fine because it's awful.
Yeah.
So, glad you put it up there because people need to avoid this at all costs.
Yeah, I mean, man, if you're one of those people, one of those customers that like really loves this movie, I would love to hear some explanation because it's always interesting. People tell me all the time, and I never believe it. But there's got to be a reason.
I'd rather take a crowbar to the wall and pry Battlefield Earth off of the shelf in order to revisit that before I watch Popeye again.
Well, if we ever revisit this topic, you're going to have to.
I might have to. All right. Well, on to my first pick. I am choosing 2002's Irreversible. Now, we keep this movie in the toilet of the bathroom that the guy blew up that I mentioned earlier at the beginning of our episode.
It's too good for this movie.
Yeah, I agree. Here's the back of the box. Events over the course of one traumatic night in Paris unfold in reverse chronological order as the beautiful Alex is brutally raped and beaten by a stranger in the underpass and subsequently seeks revenge upon her assailant. A simultaneously beautiful and terrible examination of the destructive nature of cause and effect and how time destroys everything. Tagline, time destroys everything. So this was the first movie that came to mind for me when we chose this theme.
Can't imagine why.
I fucking hate this movie. I regret ever watching it once, and I abhor the fact that I had to watch it twice. It comes to us from French provocateur Gaspar Noé. This is the same guy who directed Climax, the movie I chose for our dancing theme.
Also don't like that movie.
But you probably like it better than this.
Well, I gave that one 2 stars because the dancing scene is one of the greatest scenes I've ever seen in my entire life. The rest of that movie is as unwatchable as this one.
Well, Gaspar Noé has been associated with the new French extremity movement in cinema, and French can go hard in the paint when it comes to horror, but this isn't horror. This is trash, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Gimmick of this movie is that it unfolds in reverse. The scenes aren't shot backward. The movie begins at the end of a story, and after 98 minutes of wretchedness, we arrive at the beginning of the story. And it's a story about trauma, dealing with trauma, and how it approaches this topic is wrong in every way. So as the back of the box explains, the trauma that we're talking about is rape. And I generally object to sexual assault as a plot device, but here it's not a plot device. It's a 9-minute uncut sequence in the middle of the film where we see rape depicted in the most brutal way possible. There are no words to explain how upsetting this section of the film is.
Yeah, it's absolutely terrible.
It can't emphasize that enough.
I want to make clear, though, if you take that scene out of the movie, this is completely unwatchable still.
Oh,
completely.
I agree. And I'm going to get into that. So why did I choose this for tonight's theme? I hate this movie. I hate the director for making it. It's not art. It comes across as a sick fantasy where it feels like the director is trying to say to the world, look how edgy I am, look what I did, but this isn't art. There's nothing to celebrate here. And as you mentioned, the rape scene isn't the only upsetting scene in the film. Because the movie unfolds in reverse, it almost begins with with 2 men seeking revenge on the guy who committed this crime. And that scene is an exercise in body horror that is upsetting in a whole different way. It's going to be stomach-turning for a vast majority of people. I don't even have a problem with body horror, but this is excessive. And then through the rest of the movie, there's no shortage of scenes where characters act misogynistic, homophobic, transphobic. They treat women horribly. It's all disgusting.
Yeah, and going back to that part at the beginning with the where they beat that guy's face in, like that's a brutal scene. But we've seen horror movies where things like that
Sure.
are depicted.
Yeah.
But I contend that in that scene the camera work is even worse than the
God.
body horror. I mean, you said he was trying to be like edgy for edgy's sake.
Yeah.
And it seems like, having seen a couple of this guy's movies, every scene is just that.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to flip the camera around in circles. Like, no, like, just show me something that's happening. Do you know?
Yes.
And to the point where, like, I was checked out of this movie so fast. Just like in Climax, like, that scene where it's like 15 minutes of just people like droning on and on about something, and it's just like, I want this to end right now.
Yeah.
It's just this guy something about his movies. I was itching for the fast forward button every second of this movie.
That's a great way to put it. And just like Climax, he likes to make movies where it's long takes that appear to be uncut. And I think in the case of this film, it's a lot of shots that are stitched together digitally to look as though it's one long take. But yeah, I'm fine with long takes, but this is nauseating.
Yeah, it's like every beat of the movie, you see where it's going, and then the movie takes way too long to get there.
Yeah.
And you're just waiting for the movie to catch up every second. You're like, yeah, I know that's going to happen. Just get to it already,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just, he's not for me.
No, he's certainly not for me either.
I'm glad it was in reverse order, though, because at least you hate it immediately. Because like the bad shit's up front, and then it kind of like it gets a little bit more mild as you go along, and you could be tricked into liking those characters if it was in the other order.
Right.
And then as the movie just gets more and more miserable, then you just hate yourself even more at the end. You're like, oh, why did I get, the way it is now, you're completely out from the very beginning.
Yeah. It's interesting that you mention that, because there's no shortage of 5-star reviews on Letterboxd for the movies we chose tonight. Irreversible is no exception. In fact, there are swaths of people that love this movie for the fact that it's making the audience feel how deeply traumatic rape can be, and people appreciate that this movie begins with the revenge that's enacted, because it forces you to unpack what brought this violence on. But I don't care. There's still a better way to tell this story. I'm just unwilling to accept that rape, as it's treated in this movie, has to be handled in this way. It's awful. I did find a Letterboxd review by Lydia Roberts, who shares my opinion of this film. And I'm going to read a big segment of her take, because it hits on a lot of the very low notes of this film. She says, "Wholly despicable. This film is completely disgusting and devoid of anything other than empty transgression, homophobia, and misogyny. Noé himself makes a cameo appearance, wanking himself off in a gay club as Vincent Castle is almost raped, and it's a fitting image in that it's all the director does. In every frame of all of his pictures, there's this transcendent sense of ego, and you can hear him whisper, 'Look how fucking edgy I am,' deluded into thinking he's making something worthwhile instead of the insipid and vapid drawl all of his films are. What a fucking shitty movie." Congratulations, Lydia.
I could not agree more.
You nailed it.
That is 100% on the money.
Yes. So with that, don't rent this movie.
And don't be tricked into giving something a high rating just because it seems like it's edgy or other people are. This is a piece of shit.
This is a piece of shit. And this won't be the last time that we touch on that point, because that comes up again with my third film. But yeah, don't let the world tell you that something that's bad is good. Definitely this is bad.
Not. So bad it's bad.
So bad it's bad.
So my next movie is from 2008. The title is Wanted, which doesn't mean a whole lot. This is filed in the self-care section. Here's the back of the box. Doormat Wesley Gibson discovers that his recently murdered father, who Wesley never knew, belonged to a secret guild of assassins. After a leather-clad sexpot drafts Wesley into the society, he hones his innate killing skills and turns Avenger. Tagline, choose your destiny.
Bad tagline.
Bad tagline, just bad. Wanted stars James McAvoy, Morgan Freeman, and Angelina Jolie.
Yep.
Which is a cast that'll catch your eye.
Don't forget about Terrence Stamp.
Yeah. You see the cast and you're like, I could be into this.
Yeah.
This is the genre I like.
Sign me up.
That's how I got tricked into watching it. I was like, wait, 2008. Like, how have I not heard of this movie with this cast,
right.
with this plot line? Well, you find out pretty quick, I think. But before we go any further, I do have to acknowledge that this was like very much a hit. I'm in the minority opinion here.
You are, yes, in a minority opinion, and I suspect that both of our second movies tonight are instances where you and I will disagree with one another on our interpretations of this film. But I'm going to withhold. I'm going to let you go.
Well, this has a 70% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Okay.
2.9 on Letterboxd. But most surprisingly, this grossed $342 million.
That's a buttload of money.
Yeah, worldwide. It was like 135 in the U.S.
Yeah.
So it was like that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
2008 for a movie that I had never heard of. I don't know how. I just
not a franchise film, completely original. Yeah.
So this movie starts off on the absolute wrong foot with a completely insane title screen. I just want to read this off. 1,000 years ago, a clan of weavers formed a secret society of assassins. They silently carried out executions to restore order to a world on the brink of chaos. They called themselves the Fraternity. I mean, what the fuck is that about?
I did have to rewind this and rewatch the title sequence because I was like, I'm sorry, what? Weavers?
I have multiple questions about every single sentence of that paragraph. Every single sentence of that paragraph, I just have so many things to ask. And the movie doesn't get back to any of that.
None.
Doesn't address it whatsoever. Then it moves on to one of the next giant red flags, which is a voiceover.
Oh, yeah.
And when you start your movie off with a voiceover, it's not usually a good sign. They're hard to make work anyway. Every so often, you get a Goodfellas or something, but it's pretty rare. But it's really bad when it's along the lines of like, you're probably wondering why I'm man. So this movie starts off, in my opinion, as badly as you could possibly imagine, and then gets worse from there.
When you read title cards that suggest that we've got weavers who started this fraternity of assassins, you have to think, okay, well, surely there's some incredible plot device that depended on weavers being the ones who got this thing started. But no.
Well, there is a device.
Well, there is a device,
which I want to get to, but yeah, but no, it has. They don't even mention the weaving at all, or why it happened.
Yeah, it could have literally been blacksmiths. Any profession from 1,000 years ago,
yes,
would have made sense.
Clan
but they chose weavers.
Why weavers? Also, like a world on the brink of chaos. What does that mean? Like, what do you mean by that? And how does doing executions keep the world from falling into chaos?
Right.
Where do you what is any of this about? I mean, it makes no sense. But then, the first 15 to 20 minutes are just this like blatant ripoff of The Matrix and Office Space and Fight Club. It's like somebody in 1999 had been watching all of these movies and was like, I'm going to write a script. And they wrote the first 15 to 20 pages. They're like, I'll take a little bit of this, a little bit of that. And they just put it all in there. They even had the red fucking stapler. Like we wouldn't notice.
Oh, yeah.
They had like the office lady and they had the cubicle thing like they did in The Matrix. Like everything was just like ripped off from something else. It was like kind of embarrassing.
Yeah, it's blatant.
It's like they thought we hadn't seen those movies.
I know. Yeah.
And then they so the fraternity recruits through Angelina Jolie recruits James McAvoy supposedly to avenge the death of his father, who he doesn't even know exists. Like he's like, I thought he died 30 years ago or whatever, right?
Right.
But this is when we learn what his superpowers are, and everybody else in the fraternity. which is that their heart beats fast sometimes. That's their superpower.
Apparently.
Their heart beats fast sometimes, which makes them awesome at everything and able to bend a bullet in flight. And none of this is explained.
No.
Not whatsoever.
I also find it peculiar that they landed on the term fraternity for this group of people when Angelina Jolie is one of the key members. You could have called it anything. Nothing depended on this being a fraternity, and yet here they are.
Well, it got named a long time ago, back when women were not allowed to be weavers. Which so they,
obviously I shouldn't have overlooked that.
Yeah. Which so you could explain that, but also like it's such a dumb name.
Yeah.
It's
Call
so
it the
dumb.
coalition or the federation or
Even
the
that,
alliance.
I don't
It's
know,
something.
it's just
anything else.
So anyway, so then James McAvoy goes through multiple training montages. Now his training consists of just getting the absolute shit beat out of him for hours.
Yeah.
And then he like sits in a hot tub until he's better.
Full of wax.
Yeah. There's wax in it for some reason. And then like about halfway through the movie, they do the training montage again. And it's all the same training. Like there's nothing new he's doing.
That's true.
They're like, no, we got to now it's time to do it again. And it's like another training montage. Again, like we're just going to beat the shit out of you.
Yes.
Like, just in a different way. But it's like we wouldn't notice that like they did it twice. And then the way they teach him to bend bullets, he's like, well, how do I do it? And they're like, well, whoever said you couldn't?
Right.
Like, well, the laws of physics.
Right.
The first thing.
Right.
And then I guess they just had extra corpses laying around for their target practice.
Yeah, they don't explain that.
They just have to like, yeah, shoot these corpses. So Wanted sets up this preposterous world with preposterous rules, which normally wouldn't be a problem. I like that stuff sometimes, but they don't pay any of it off. Nothing is explained. Nothing's paid off. Like there isn't some cool thing. It's like, well, guess this is how you really bend the bullets, or like this is what it really means.
Yeah, it's different than suspension of disbelief because I think The Matrix did a good job with suspension of disbelief. It's like, okay, there's something here that we, don't understand.
Imagine if you saw Neo do all that crazy shit and they never once said like, well, he might be like the person who can like rise, whatever they say about it. Like that just happened and no one commented on it.
Yeah. This is just like we're just going to show you some wacky shit and just go with it.
Yeah. The perfect example of this is the magic loom.
Yeah.
Which is obviously the fraternity was formed by a clan of weavers, and so obviously they get their information from a magic loom. But wouldn't it have been nice to know like what that was all about?
Right.
Like where it came from or why?
Yeah. What gave it its power?
Yeah. It just spits out secret messages in ones and zeros, binary code for some reason, that's encoded in the fabric that it's spitting out. And so according to the movie, someone has to sit there for 24 hours a day and look at every thread as it comes through the loom. And then after they read it, all it does is tell them to kill people.
Right.
And then they fill out these kill orders that look like a job application from Pizza Hut from 1998. There's like, James L. Simpson on Oak Street. And it's like, what are you talking about? Like, is this how assassins deal? Like, I need that filled out in triplicate, Right. Like, I need a form filled out that's already like, it's like pre-printed on like a pack.
Yes.
It's like they printed out like 100 of them. I mean, it's just so dumb. But then, like, also these assassins work at the mill as their day job.
Oh, yeah. They're not just killing people. They're also making a living, I guess.
What is all that fabric for?
Yeah.
And then, of course, we get Morgan Freeman, who is like, he's like the main guy.
Yeah.
And he's using the loom for his own purposes, because he's the guy that reads the loom and he's the guy that fills out the Pizza Hut job applications, And so it turns out that he's putting the wrong people's names on these forms. But the twist at the end of the movie is not that the loom was never magic and he was just doing bad shit. It's like, no. The loom is magic. He was just lying about what the loom was telling us to do.
Right.
And so, again, this is unexplained. They're just like, yep. The loom's real, obviously, but like, Morgan Freeman is just a bad guy. And they just kind of yada this away.
Yeah.
And it's just like completely insulting.
So you are touching on a lot of the things that make this a 3-star movie for me. And I think it's a lot of the laughing that we're doing about how ridiculous this is, because I did not know what to expect other than that you hated this going into it. And in the first 2 minutes of the movie, we see a character fleeing from an assassin, and you think he's going to run out of an office building, but no, he opens the elevator to brace himself for a magical leap that he makes through a window across a chasm to the roof of another office building in order to kill everybody. And at that point I was like, okay, I know what I'm in for. And I just...
Do you? What were we in for? His heart was beating fast.
We were in for nonsense.
Yeah. I guess I can deal with nonsense.
Yeah.
But like, I don't know. I hated all the characters. You know what? I was kind of with you when I rewatched it the last time for a little while, like 30, 40 minutes. But then after that, it was just like, really? Like, are they going to really just like not just try to get away with all of this?
Well, I couldn't help but to feel almost the entire time that I'm watching this that Kingsman is the 4/5-star version of this movie. It does everything that this movie is trying to do, but better. And it removes all of the blatant ripoffs of other films. It tells an original story. It still has your nobody off the street that's being trained into a world of assassins, and the
characters are likable, and the assassins are cool.
Yes.
Everything about assassins, works. There's nothing cool about these people.
Yes,
there's nothing cool about them.
No.
Like they have a superpower. Like, oh yeah, we were like drawn into this because we have anxiety. It's like, are you kidding me?
Right.
That's what this is about. And like, I don't know, Angelina Jolie is like not great. Morgan Freeman, like even watching him in the scenes, I felt sorry for him because it's like, he can't be taking this seriously.
Mm-mm. No way.
Yeah, it's just a disaster all the way around. I can see where you're going with it, but like
maybe 3 stars is too high. This is a 2-star movie.
I can understand if you, like I said, I was enjoying the funny laughing at, like the so bad it's good. See that? You know, we're doing a so bad it's bad.
Yeah.
And I don't really buy the so bad it's good thing where it's like, because that like implies that, you reach a level of being so bad that you've reached good. I don't believe that at all.
I agree.
I think there are certain types of bad that are enjoyable.
That you can laugh at.
Exactly. And going back to this, I was afraid. I was like, oh, did I make a mistake? Like, is this really funny to laugh at? But same with Popeye, man. Like, it took longer for this one, but like it just beat me down. And I just got so angry at it after a while. So angry. And I fucking hate it. And I don't know why people like this movie, but I have to put it on the staff recommendation shelf this week for so bad it's bad.
Well, listen, let me be clear. I will never watch this movie again. There are much better alternatives if you want this story. And there's nothing... I mean, even the filmmaking by the director Timur Bekmambetov... It just feels like a poor man's version of what Zack Snyder was doing at the time and what the Wachowskis were doing. And nothing is funny. The action isn't satisfying. It's not a good story.
Yeah, it's humorless, too. It doesn't. It takes itself seriously and it thinks it's cool.
It tries to be funny. And
kind of.
There's stuff like when the main character hits Chris Pratt with the keyboard and the letters, fuck you, pop out.
Yeah, like if you thought Maxim magazine was like the bee's knees in 2005 or whatever,
right?
Like whenever that shit, like then you'll think this movie's fucking hilarious. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like I think this also like points out maybe our differences in our rating scales, because like if I'm going to say I'll never watch this movie again, definitely not a 3-star movie. You know?
I'm going to settle at 2 stars. I upon giving it some more careful thought, 2 stars is the right number for me. But I don't blame you for giving it 1 star. I didn't hate it with all of my being, but I did not like it. So fine entry for the shelf. I have a feeling that we're going to revisit this similar discussion with my next film.
We could.
So I'm going back to 1988, and the movie I chose is Death Spa. So I threw the one copy of this movie on the roof of the store last year. So it doesn't actually fit into a section. But I'm going to give you the back of the box. I fetched it. It reads like this. Michael's health club is besieged with a series of terrible murders involving killer saunas and other grisly devices. Michael's wife killed herself a while before, and her brother holds Michael responsible. Michael needs to stop the bloodshed before he loses all of his clients. Tagline, you'll sweat blood.
I like it.
Yeah, I mean, the tagline is fine. So our listeners probably know at this point that I'm a fan of horror, the whole entire genre, classics, the new era of horror, slashers, ghost stories. I like all of it. I love to be frightened. I'm even a fan of the B-level horror movies that flooded the shelves in the early 80s and 90s. I've brought a few of them to the shelf in the past in the form of Dead Alive and Society. I wouldn't blame people for seeing Death Spa on the shelf and thinking, how could this not be fun? What a wacky premise.
Please explain.
I'm sure it's hilarious.
How this isn't great.
It's not. I think this is a downright bad movie, and I want this time back in my life. There is one facet of this movie that that is deserving of the single star that I gave it, in the sense that it gets some credit from me for being interesting. And it's in the first moments of the movie when we're kind of panning through this city and we land on the spa, and it's a place called Star Body Health Spa. And there's a storm brewing, and lightning strikes the building, and certain lights in the sign short out so that what we're left with is Death Spa.
And that just lets us know that we're just getting started.
Yeah, it does. I think that's great right there. But it leads you to believe that a good time is in store. But in my opinion, everything goes south from there, and not in a good way. Yeah, back of the box, top line's what we get here. However, it's when we get into the details that, for me, like the dots do not connect these plot points. And what isn't mentioned on the back of the box is that this whole gym is controlled by an advanced computer system.
Yeah, that is fucking hilarious.
Yeah, apparently it regulates everything that happens at the spa. People are dying because... Everything. And yeah, there seems to be something awry with the computer system, but that's not the whole story. Something that bothered me both times that I watched this is that I'm fairly certain that the director of this movie has never set foot in a gym or spa. And in fact, his depiction of one seems like he was basing the set design on the description of a gym that he heard from someone else who had never been to a gym before. It feels like we're in a weird office building, but there's also a lot of like Native American decor that's sprinkled out throughout this place.
The 80s were weird.
The 80s were
gyms
weird.
were just kind of being invented, you know? So people were sticking gyms in all kinds of places. So like, who's to say? Maybe gyms were like this.
Maybe.
This is like a strip mall gym.
It feels like that. I mean, it is. That's where it kind of exists in this world. So why did I choose this as something that people should never watch? So in a movie like this, I want the kills to be imaginative and wacky, and here, for me, they are not. I'm gonna take a stab at rewriting the back of the box to better set up what's in store. And I'm curious if you feel like this is a better description of the movie we get. Something's amiss at a computer-controlled health spa. As guests fall victim to mysterious accidents, there's no telling who's to blame. Is it Michael, the dashing owner of Starbody Health Spa? Is it his partner, the twin brother of Michael's dead wife? Or has the spirit of Michael's former spouse inhabited this batshit crazy establishment to wreak havoc on the downright idiotic gym-goers? We'll leave it to two moronic cops to piece together the clues and solve this stupid mystery before it's too late.
I mean, yeah, you're right, but also that doesn't bother me.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't even talked about the weird cutaways, flashbacks, or dream sequences featuring Michael's dead wife, where she appears to be setting herself on fire in the desert.
In a wheelchair?
In a wheelchair, yeah. I don't even know what to make of those. Or the Ghostbuster that Michael hires to investigate the gym with the strange electronic wand.
I mean, I definitely didn't hate this movie. I don't know what else to say. Like, yeah, you're right. It didn't make any sense, and like a lot of it doesn't make any sense. I mean, it's not great, but like it's bad in all the ways that I like. It's silly, it's goofy, it's schlocky, it's cheesy.
Yeah.
Like it's not the best example of one of these 80s horror movies, but it is an example of one of those, and I tend to like those movies unless there's something that really puts me off of it. And you're right, the kills aren't great, but the ending. I like the ending of the movie. Like that's what put it. Like that's what solidified it at least as a 3-star movie to me. Is I like how it ended. Mm-hmm. It's like, oh, that's perfect. And they clearly didn't have a lot of budget, and that's fine.
Definitely didn't.
And there was one decent kill, I think.
Which one?
Didn't somebody get like a thing through the face?
Are you talking about the detective that got a possessed swordfish to his face?
Maybe that's what I'm thinking. No, the guy that gets attacked by the frozen fish. I thought somebody got something jammed through their face.
Maybe
I'm misremembering.
No, you might be right. In the locker room, perhaps.
Yeah. It went up like through their mouth.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's...
If this movie would have had really good kills, it's a 4-star movie to me.
That's what you need from a movie. This tries to check a lot of the boxes of B horror. It's got nudity. It's got a lot of nudity.
The first half of the movie, there's like pretty much always a naked person on screen.
Yes. It's got it's attempting to make some gruesome kills. I mean, it's trying, but for me, it felt poorly written, horribly shot, not the least bit entertaining, not scary, just boring as fuck. I could not wait for this to end, and I didn't care about anything that was happening on screen at all.
I hear you. It wasn't quite that for me. I think this is the type of movie people think of when they hear so bad it's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you know what? If it doesn't work for you, then it's just bad.
I think that for the people who are looking for that, we have better options.
There are better options. I agree. Options. But you know what? Like sometimes you just gotta get them all. You gotta make sure you see every single one of them.
Now, I pulled a 1-star review from a fellow Rewind Video customer, someone I actually watched this movie with the first time I saw it. So user Jeff Laughlin said, "Unwatchable." So I watched it. Slightly better than Joker. His take perhaps, but not too different from mine. I lied. There is one more slightly redeemable facet of this movie for me, and it's during a scene when 2 gym members are interacting and a woman is showing interest in a guy who's not at all interested in her. And the line he gives her to shoo her away is, "I'm beta, you're VHS."
That's right.
Which made me laugh.
Yeah, I think he was saying he's gay.
Maybe
that's how I took it, but I was like, I'm not sure.
Yeah,
it's hard to because I don't know. That was a time of America that we're not that familiar with.
Right,
I know beta and VHS, but I'm not really sure what the reference is.
I wasn't either, but I couldn't help but to laugh at it.
I gotta say, I kind of like this movie, honestly. And there's a universe where, in the right topic, I would have brought this to the table to recommend, to be perfectly honest.
Well, I'm sure there's also a whole bunch of customers who are thinking to themselves, "Bob, you recommended The Cook, the Thief, the Wife, and His Lover, and Raw, and
Climax.
You didn't like this movie? It's the first thing I'm renting next time I come to the store."
Yeah. And to those people, I'm going to give you a free rental.
And to that, I'm going to say, good luck.
Okay. I'm going to take us to a recent movie.
Okay.
This is The Rise of Skywalker.
A Star Wars film.
A Star Wars film.
Wow. This is our first foray into the modern, like, Disney, MCU, Star Wars mega machine.
Exactly. Yeah, this is the first time we've done a movie that's part of that machine.
Yes.
This is directed by J.J. Abrams. It is filed under different types of size. Here's the back of the box. The surviving resistance faces the First Order once again as the journey of Rey, Finn, and Poe Dameron continues. With the power and knowledge of generations behind them, the final battle begins. I just want to say about the back of the box there, that if you had given, in 2015, if you had given me the general outline, a one-paragraph explanation of what The Force Awakens was, I could have written this back of the box for Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah.
Completely generic. It's like, there's your three characters. It's them. And then with all the stuff that happened before, they're going to fight. Like, what?
Yeah.
Tagline, every generation has a legend.
No, fuck off.
It's embarrassing.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Everything about this movie is embarrassing. This is the culmination of the 9-part, 42-year-long Star Wars saga.
Well, when you put it like that, it feels even worse.
Yeah. I think everybody's familiar with Star Wars.
Yeah.
You have the original trilogy, which went from 77 to 83, the prequels from 99 to 05, and then this trilogy was 15 to 19. And we had The Force Awakens, and then The Last Jedi, which I know you're a huge fan of.
Love it. Favorite Star Wars movie.
Yeah, which I think is kind of a wild take. I have my issues with that movie. I kind of want to get into the problems with the series, the trilogy as a whole, as we go on. But I think what I hate the most about The Rise of Skywalker is that it seems entirely thrown together with like no regard to stuff that's happened before, plots that have been going on, a need to wrap things up in a satisfying way.
Oh, I could not agree more. I think that is the biggest problem with this movie. It feels to me like Rian Johnson with The Last Jedi set out to free the Star Wars universe of all of the baggage that it had been carrying for 7 movies preceding it, and set it into a new direction. In fact, most of what he disregarded or put an end to were things that were established in The Force Awakens, and so I think that upset J.J. Abrams, and it feels to me like he was almost trying to undo what Rian Johnson undid and cram essentially 2 movies into one.
Well, it's hard to say how much control J.J. Abrams had over it.
You're right.
Part of the problem with this trilogy is that it didn't seem like anybody had any sort of vision for it from beginning. Like, I don't have any skin in this game. Like, I know that there was like I know that what you were saying, that like Rian Johnson discarded all this stuff, and then J.J. Abrams wanted to like go back to the way it was 2 movies ago or whatever.
Yeah.
But also in Rian Johnson's movie, the coolest part of that fucking movie is Luke Skywalker.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And like, how hard is it to just like keep Luke being cool, you know? Yes. And it's like and like it wasn't like The Last Jedi changed shit up so much that like you can't make a cool movie after it, right? It doesn't make any sense.
I agree.
But like I'm not committed to like Rey's got to be this, or like they said this in this movie and whatever. Like I kind of grew up with Star Wars. I didn't really come to it until like later, 13, maybe 14 years old or whatever. So like I don't know. I never watched the prequels
until
I watched one.
Oh, okay.
I watched episode 1, but after that, I'm like, fuck this. I'm like, that was 25 years ago at this point.
Okay. And have you not revisited Attack of the Clones or Revenge of the Sith?
No, I've never seen them.
Oh wow.
I watched Phantom Menace Part 1. After that, I was like, no. So like I didn't care. I'm not like a Star Wars like fanatic. Like I'm not like things need to be a certain way or whatever. But like pick something and just go with it. Like make a story that makes sense.
Now. So I had a different experience than you did growing up. These movies were beloved to me. I watched them 1,000 times. I played with the action figures. I was and still am a huge Star Wars fan. And I agree that there couldn't be a more disappointing way to end this saga. However, I do think that Attack of the Clones is perhaps a worse movie than this. And that's not to say that there can't be two 1-star movies in this 9-movie saga, but whew.
I've been meaning to go back and check those out at some point in my life. But I don't know. It's just, I don't care who is who or what is what. Just like make a good movie, Yeah. And to be clear, I adore the original trilogy. I didn't like them as a kid. Mm-hmm. I eventually, by the time I was in high school, I'd seen them and honestly, I didn't really grow to appreciate them until as an adult.
Yeah.
And but now I love those movies. Absolutely fantastic movies. But I also don't care about what happens in the Star Wars universe. Just make some cool movies.
Well, yeah. That's the problem, because I don't know if I can speak for you in saying this, but what captivated me about the original trilogy is that it was such a unique vision, and it felt like such a gigantic universe. And ever since then, the filmmakers have been handcuffed with not only the 9 movies in the saga, but even the separate films and the series, with just diving deeper into all of the characters that were established at the beginning. I just want them to explore this fucking universe and give me something brand new, just like they did with the first 3 movies. Yeah. And they're unwilling to do that.
Even just within this trilogy, they kind of set up their characters. Here's Finn and here's Poe and they just are we're gonna do that. Even The Last Jedi, which I really like. It is 150 minutes. And there's a 25-minute scene where it's Finn and Rose have to go out and get something, It's why is this in this movie? Finn's a terrible character. I understand they wanted to branch out and make new characters, and even Poe, I know he's kind of cool and I like him on screen, but within the movies, he just wastes time. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. It feels to me like they're trying to give us new versions of the types of characters that we liked from the original saga, and it's don't do that. Just give me new characters with new just, personalities.
The best parts of this trilogy are when they just hit the beats from the old trilogy, which you know what? Fine. That's great. I want to see Luke Skywalker be a badass.
Yes.
I have no problem with that. But he kind of that's the weird thing about the Rise of Skywalker is Finn is John Boyega mainly is better than he's been in any other movie. It's the best use of that character, or the best the way the character is acting. Even Poe, the same. The Rise of Skywalker, it's better in that movie than the other movies. But everything that they screwed up in the original movies just kind of comes to in the first 2 movies of this trilogy comes to a head in the Rise of Skywalker, and this movie kind of pays for all of those sins.
It does.
This movie is about Rey finding out who she is, quote unquote. But Disney and Lucasfilm never bothered to figure out who that was first and then made a movie about it.
Right.
You know what I mean? They're we got to make a movie about someone finding themselves. And they didn't figure out who that was first.
Yeah.
We'll make 2 movies first and then throw it together at the end. It's what are you talking about?
That's exactly how it
This
feels.
movie, this whole saga, this 9-movie story is about a bloodline too. It's about the Skywalker bloodline, the Vader and Solo, and how does that express itself through Kylo Ren, and how is Rey involved and whatever, and just and then we get to we're gonna find out who Rey is, and then it just lands with this thud that just it just falls through the floor. Yeah. It's oh, it's the Emperor. It's who fucking cares? No one's thought about that guy for 35 years. Nobody cares.
This movie feels as if it is trying incredibly hard to service all of the fans with stuff that they think people want to see again in movies, and that's my least favorite part of it.
I guess so. I don't know who they thought they were servicing. To be perfectly honest, Force Awakens is a lot of fan service stuff.
It is a lot of fan service.
And it's so much more satisfying than this.
Yes. It is. It's a better movie.
Yeah. And it's not amazing. They're hitting a lot of the same beats from the original trilogy, and
right.
that's a ding on it, I think. But also, I can, it's a movie about a bloodline, like we said. Like, I'll accept some things in the name of like history repeats itself,
Yeah.
And like I want to see cool stuff, but like try a little bit, like they could kill off Chewbacca for 5 minutes,
Right. Yeah.
for no like it's underwhelming when he dies. You're just like, what? Like, was he on that ship? Like, they didn't even make it clear. And then he comes back. You're like, whatever. Like wasn't sure he was dead in the first place. You didn't make it clear that he was dead. Like everyone just starts complaining, and then they give C-3PO a lobotomy. And then that comes back. Like then they're like, whatever. And then actually the quote from right after that, I think, is the mission statement for the entire trilogy. Memory restoration complete.
Yes.
I think that was kind of like what the point of this whole thing was.
Well, you're flirting with a part of the movie that I think is actually fantastic. And it's maybe the only part of this movie that I love. And it's Babu Frick. That motherfucker, give me hours of him.
Which one is that?
He's the little puppet that lobotomizes. I adored him, and I don't even know if it's a him. Who knows? But
I mean,
that little character, phenomenal.
I gotta say, I've tried to watch this movie 4 times. I only finished it once, and that was because we're recording a podcast about it. I could never get to the end, and like I just check out so much that like I could barely place that character. Yeah, like so many. Like I took notes, and I want to read you some of my notes here.
Okay.
What is happening? What is this all about? There's an hour left. This is going nowhere. And my last one, how are they going to bring this together? And spoiler alert, they do not. They absolutely do not.
They do not.
So I think, but honestly, like I think in a vacuum, this is a 3-star movie. If this movie if Star Wars didn't exist and you made a movie that was basically this, I think it's enjoyable because if you have no expectations, if it's not connected to anything, if this was like, here's my weird little sci-fi movie with cool special effects, whatever, it's a 3-star movie to me, because like it doesn't because there's no stakes or whatever. But I think like within the context that it's in, it is a complete disaster.
Yeah, and I had a note on this subject that I made for myself when rewatching this, which is this a better movie when it is separated from the films that precede it? Which I know you can't technically do because it's so tied to not just the 2 movies that came before it, but the other 6 as well. I don't know. It's an open-ended question for me, but I'm trying to imagine what it's like to just jump in with this and what is that experience like? And maybe it's better than one where you've been waiting for 42 years to see how things conclude.
Yeah.
But it's never a good movie.
Yeah. I mean, you don't have to be a good movie for me to give you 3 stars, if this was if this was just an independent sci-fi movie, I'd be like, it's good enough, but like within the context of the Star Wars universe, no, it's absolutely horrible. Yeah. It's possibly the most unsatisfying movie of all time, because as like I said, I don't have like this grand emotional connection to the Star Wars universe, but like, especially after The Last Jedi, I'm like, they could like at least tie this up and have a fucking great movie, and like they didn't. And they had maybe one of the worst ones I've ever seen. So I have to put it on the shelf this week for So Bad It's Bad. Well,
I can't argue with anything that you said. It's not a good movie. And for that reason, we say don't rent it.
Don't rent it. Don't rent it. And please don't let this be your kid's first Star Wars movie because then they'll love it. and then they'll be disappointed by the other ones
that are good
because the other 8 movies don't make sense because this one is the best.
Right. Well, I'm going to round things out with my final pick. And mine is relatively recent, not as recent as yours, but I'm going back to 2006. And I'm pulling a movie that we keep in the janitorial closet among the trash bags. This one's called Inland Empire. Back of the box synopsis. An actress's perception of reality becomes increasingly distorted as she finds herself falling for her co-star in a remake of an unfinished Polish production that was supposedly cursed. Tagline, "A woman in trouble."
What?
Yeah, I don't know. This movie looks like it was shot on a cell phone camera, but not like a cell phone from today, like one from 2003, like a Motorola Razr.
Wasn't this like the beginning of the digital film era?
Yeah, but David Lynch literally shot this on a camcorder.
Okay.
And it feels like one that maybe he bought at CVS.
It looks bad.
It looks fucking bad. I'd be fine if the movie that David Lynch shot was worth watching, but this is 3 hours of nonsense. And in my opinion, no surprise, it comes from David Lynch. So with the exception of Twin Peaks, I am not a fan of Lynch. I get frustrated with how abstract his movies are. Too often for me, they lack any coherent narrative. They're weird, in my opinion, for the sake of being weird. And it just all feels masturbatory to me. And this movie is all of Lynch's worst tendencies, dialed to 11 to the 11th power, in my opinion. Normally, I wouldn't even watch a Lynch film, but generally, I know what I'm going to get. But I was intrigued by this because I know a lot of reviewers and critics mentioned that this film is a study in liminal space. And I love the theme of liminal space. Are you familiar with liminal space?
No? Yes?
So, for the uninitiated, liminal space describes a place or a state of change or transition. It could refer to physical spaces like a doorway or a hallway, or like a psychological state such as like adolescence. So liminal space often depicts a sense of like the in-between or places that defy logic in their construction. You know, liminal space can sometimes be a situation where the interior of a building doesn't seem to correspond with the physical construction of the exterior of the building. So, you know, internet short films like The Back Rooms deal in liminal space in a really fascinating way. I didn't get that at all from this.
I actually 100% got that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because actually it finally hit me. I don't watch a lot of David Lynch movies either. I don't like David Lynch movies generally. But like watching this, it finally hit me because so many of his movies are about these two realities that are kind of connected somehow. Mm-hmm. And it finally hit me when I was watching this. I'm like, oh, he makes movies about that space in between those two things, you know, which is that liminal space.
That's fair.
You know?
Yeah.
I'm not saying I like that. In fact, I hate it.
Okay.
I don't like his movies, but it did strike me finally. I'm like, okay, that's where he is. That's where his reality is between these two different things that are happening that are connected somehow. He's making a movie about the space in between those two things.
Right.
Here, it's quite literal too.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways.
Yes, I agree with that. I read the Wikipedia entry on the plot of this film after watching it. I don't feel like I watched the same movie. For context, the most liked review of this film on Letterboxd is from the user Grooveman. It has over 4,000 likes. This guy gave this movie 5 stars, and his entire review is just a question mark.
5 stars.
I mean, more or less, this does tell the story of a Hollywood actress who begins to take on the personality of a character she plays in a supposedly cursed film production. That sounds like a movie I'd like to watch. Somehow Lynch fucks it all up. I don't feel like that's what I got. If you were to describe that movie to me, I'd be like, yeah, I'm all in. Give that to me. But I don't think we get it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what's happening in this movie. I just don't. It doesn't even bother me anymore that David Lynch's movies are confusing or meaningless.
Right.
They just completely bounce off of me.
Yeah.
I don't. He has interesting ideas.
Yeah.
I think we talk about that space that he's playing in. I think he has just some interesting ideas about things, but he just explores them in ways that don't connect with me at all.
Or even anything that precedes those ideas or follows them, because I feel like there are scenes in his movies that I'm like, oh, fuck yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
But those scenes feel completely disconnected from the rest of the movie for me. And I hate that. I wish
nothing is connected to itself.
Right,
That's
right.
the problem. And there's Lynch movies that are a lot more painful to watch than this, I think.
Oh, wow. This one is the worst for me.
Okay. I mean, I think the 3-hour runtime doesn't help.
Right.
I think that's the main problem with this, besides the fact that it's just like nonsense.
Yeah.
But I don't know. To me, this is a 2-star movie.
Okay.
Just because like there are a few scenes in there that I like. There's the dancing thing at the end, and there's like the things that happen. There's some funny parts to it. It's way too long. It's not all that interesting.
No.
But I don't know. Like, I respect David Lynch. Like, I respect that he's actually trying to do something and seems to have something to say. Also, like, after watching stuff that like Gaspar Noé makes, it's like, oh, okay, like this is somebody who to me has nothing to say. At least David Lynch is trying to say things and it's not working. But like, I get that you're going for something. But
well, there are countless 5-star reviews of Inland Empire on Letterboxd. Plenty of people going on and on about how the surrealist elements and the nonlinear storytelling are artistic. There are people who talk about Lynch's use of the handheld camcorder as, the mark of a true artist. There are even people who praise the 3-hour runtime. The vast majority even acknowledge that this movie makes no sense whatsoever. And I know this is coming from me and maybe not you, but I do have a message for all of those people. Go to the bathroom, splash some water on your face. David Lynch is trolling you. I think that this is not some magnificent foray into the avant-garde. This to me is not even on the level of a student film. I think that David Lynch is filming nonsense. He's not editing it together in any coherent way. There's not a vision that I'm seeing. And to me, it just feels like he's serving you a stew made from all the ingredients in the pantry. Nothing is cooked. There's not even really a recipe. It's just parts and pieces of something that could be interesting in the hands of maybe anyone else. But yeah, the reason I so firmly believe this is because if you take David Lynch's name off this movie and just put it in front of somebody who doesn't know who this filmmaker is and just ask them, what do you think? I don't believe that anyone is going to say, that was compelling. I loved that. And there's a review from Rotten Tomatoes that actually nods to that interpretation for me. It says, typical David Lynch fare. Fans of this director will find Inland Empire seductive and deep. All others will consider the heady surrealism impenetrable and pointless. And to that I say, you've made my point for me. Like, blind devotion to David Lynch doesn't make this a good movie. You can be a fan of the director, but the fact that this movie is pure nonsense doesn't even feel like a subjective take. It's just like, there's nothing.
Yeah, but I mean, all of his movies seem like nonsense to me, and so I don't know.
But just because that's his thing, does it make this acceptable?
I don't know. I mean, if this is if you like it, that's fine. I don't know. This is like you're somebody that has brought Gaspar Noé movies and Lars von Trier movies to the table.
Yeah.
And both of which I just like could not get behind. And The Cook, The Thief, His Wife and Her Lover, which is atrocious as well. And like, you found something that connected with you in those movies.
I did, yeah.
And I look at them largely from the perspective you're looking at this,
I see.
So I don't understand what you could possibly see in a movie like The Cook, The Thief, His Wife and Her Lover.
That's fair. And what I will say about those movies, in spite of the fact that they are not for the vast majority of people, is the fact that I think I crave a coherent narrative, or at least one that is somewhat grounded in the world that I understand. And for the same reason, not that I sympathize or even agree with this point of view, for the same reason that people might go to a modern art museum and see a painting of a square on canvas and be like, I could do that. Like, why the fuck is that art? I think that I look at this and I'm like, I can't find what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
And just putting bizarreness on screen and peppering in something interesting isn't enough to get me excited.
I generally agree with that. But also, I do see a vision in David Lynch movies to some extent.
Yeah.
And especially this time, like, I hated this movie, but to actually like have that realization about the space between realities, and that's where he's making movies. It got me like thinking, I'm like, oh no, is there going to be a time when I actually enjoy his movies? Like, am I gonna, like, and they might, like, maybe one day I'll be like, I finally get it, you know?
Yeah.
So I don't know. To me, there's more of a voice here. There's more of a point of view about something.
Maybe something that also bothers me is the fact that I know that David Lynch can tell a coherent story, and I've seen him do it. And I enjoy those movies more, or in a case of Twin Peaks, that show. And when he deviates from that, I'm not willing to give him permission to just serve something like this up.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I think he's a genuine weirdo, though, which I respect.
Yeah.
He's not trying to like. I don't think he's like trying to like just do things. He's just to like be edgy or whatever.
No,
I think he's just like. I think to him this movie makes sense. Like, honestly, I think he watches this and like he's like this. Yeah, I totally said what I'm trying to say.
Wouldn't change a thing.
Yeah.
Well, Rob, look at all these shitty movies.
So bad. 6
films that we absolutely recommend you avoid at all costs.
Except for Death Spa.
Or maybe Wanted. We've done the hard work for you, folks. Rob and I have sat through these movies so that you don't have to. And the 6 movies we subjected ourselves to are Popeye, Irreversible, Wanted, Death Spa, Star Wars, The Rise of Skywalker, and Inland Empire.
If you want to drop us a line, the comments and suggestions box is here at the store sitting right next to the register. But if you're not in the area, you can go to rewindvideopod.com to get on our mailing list or to otherwise connect with us online.
We're going to take a hot minute to recover from tonight's Torture Fest. And once we do, it's on to preparing for our next theme, which is animal performances.
Oh, that's going to be nice and fluffy.
That'll be fine, yeah.
Yeah.
As always, we'll have 6 films to recommend, and this next batch ought to feel like a breath of fresh air after this week. Until then, feel free to stop by the counter for a movie to watch, and we will see you next time.
Hail Satan!
Better than...
Hail Satan!